You know, when you think of the book of Psalms, you probably think of the 150 that are in most Bibles. But what if I told you there were more? That there are entire Psalms, ancient songs of praise, despair, and wisdom, that for centuries were basically left out. Well, today we're going to uncover some of these lost Psalms of the Bible. Okay, let's just dive right in. What you're seeing here is a glimpse into a collection of writings known as the Apocryphal Psalms. These were found in ancient manuscripts, some of them thousands of years old, and they give us this incredible window into a faith that was, honestly, way more varied than we often think. So, what does apocryphal actually mean here? Well, think of these psalms as existing in this kind of scriptural gray area. They aren't in the standard 150 that most people know, but they were preserved in really important ancient texts like the Greek Septuagint, and were even found among the famous Dead Sea Scrolls. And for some traditions, like the Coptic Orthodox and Syriac churches, these aren't just extras, they are absolutely part of Scripture. All right, to really get a handle on what these Psalms are all about, we're going to break them down and explore them through four really powerful themes. We'll start with a very personal story, then zoom out to look at communal praise, dive into some desperate cries for help, and then wrap things up with some timeless wisdom. So let's kick things off with what is probably the most famous of all these extra Psalms. We're talking about Psalm 151. And this thing isn't just a poem, it's practically an autobiography, telling one of history's greatest underdog stories from a first-person point of view. Right from the get-go, the psalm opens with the voice of David himself, and he immediately sets the scene, reminding everyone of his humble beginnings. He wasn't born a king, not even close. He was the youngest, the overlooked shepherd boy out in the fields. Now this is fascinating. Before he's known for his sling or for being a warrior, this psalm defines him by his music. He's a creator, someone whose entire purpose, it seems, is to make instruments of praise for God. This is his core identity. And here's where the psalm just frames that iconic battle in a whole new light. You can feel the tension build as David steps onto the battlefield to face Goliath, this giant who just scoffs at him, cursing him by his own gods. It gives us this really intimate, personal account of the moments right before the fight. And then the climax. The victory is swift, it's brutal, and it's deeply personal. David uses his enemy's own weapon to defeat him. What a powerful symbol of turning a threat back on itself. This isn't just some historical record. It's a hero's personal testimony, loud and clear. Okay, so we've just heard this really intense, personal story from one hero. Now we're going to zoom out a bit. The next group of psalms we're looking at moves from the individual to the collective. It's all about a powerful, communal voice of worship and just this overwhelming sense of gratitude. Several of these psalms, like 152, 155, and 159, they're just pure, unfiltered praise. They're filled with these calls to action, to glorify, to bless, to proclaim. They celebrate being saved from death, what they call the nets of Sheol, and they urge the entire community to come together in worship. And the scale of this praise is just immense. It's not limited to human voices, not at all. Psalm 159, for instance, it's like a cosmic invitation. It calls on the heavens, the stars, all of creation to join in and rejoice together. It paints this amazing picture of a universe that's just alive with worship. But, life isn't all victory marches and cosmic choirs, right? The tone shifts dramatically in our next theme. Here we encounter psalms that are born from profound suffering, from fear, and from this desperate need for rescue. These are cries coming from the absolute depths. These psalms really show the two sides of that human experience. On one hand, you get these vivid, terrifying descriptions of threats, the slayer, the peril of the wolf, this feeling of being sold to the realm of the dead, or Sheol. And then on the other side, you have this raw, unfiltered plea for help. "Oh God, come to my aid, help me and save me." And get this, in Psalm 156, the plea becomes a kind of theological negotiation. The writer uses this visceral, almost shocking imagery to make a point. They're basically saying, save me because the dead can't praise you. A worm doesn't sing your glory. Only the living can do that. So keep me alive. It's just an incredibly raw and human appeal. All right, for our final theme, we're going to shift gears. We're moving away from the heat of that personal crisis to look at psalms that offer a much wider perspective. These are reflections on divine justice, on the order of the universe, and the kind of wisdom you need to live a righteous life. So you've got Psalms like 158 and 160, and they are just packed with this kind of wisdom. They talk about a God who judges every single action and who will make sure justice prevails. They promise that the poor and the faithful will be taken care of, and then they look beyond human drama to the very mechanics of creation itself. It's this really beautiful shift in focus. The writer is just contemplating God's creative power with this incredible sense of awe, the one who established the dawn by the knowledge of his heart, and who brings forth wind from mist. It's a move from the human to the divine, about finding peace in the grand, orderly design of the cosmos. So after all this, what's the big takeaway from this explainer? It's that these so-called lost psalms aren't really alien or strange at all. They cover the full spectrum of human experience. They give voice to our personal stories, our group celebrations, our deepest fears, and our constant search for wisdom. You know, when you boil it all down, what these texts really show us is that the fundamental questions and emotions of our spiritual journey, they haven't changed. Our need to tell our story, to cry out for help, to give thanks, and to find our place in the universe, it's just as powerful today as it was thousands of years ago. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. These psalms survived for millennia, scattered in manuscripts before being rediscovered. Their journey forces us to ask a really compelling question. What does it mean for a story to be lost or found? And how does that whole process of selection and rediscovery shape what we as people decide is sacred?